Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Broman Clash right here, and today I'm going to talk about a very serious topic and possibly a controversial topic. And yes, that topic is white supremacy. And everybody asks, why is white people under attack nowadays? Why, everybody's asking like, what's going on? What's white supremacy? Some people even think like, oh, if you attack white supremacy, you're attacking white people. No, not necessarily. That doesn't mean that exactly. But let me get down to the nitty gritty. Because white supremacy is basically a social structure that is meant to benefit certain groups of people or certain races. An example, like certain groups of white people, either those in the middle class or in the higher class, as opposed to those that are in the poor. Because even white people in the poor classes, they're still being treated like crap too. So let's not get that twisted. And then, white supremacy obviously affects, those in the African African descent demographic because, we mainly get targeted. It stems right back down to, what was going on in slavery times. During the time that we were in chains, picking cotton, all that other crap, legislative laws were passed to make sure we were kept in bondage. There were a little bit after, then there were Latinos who also targeted, because they looked somewhat like us, but then they were not like us. But then, because they came from a different background other than, rich white. And then let's just get right down to it because white supremacy, everybody knows it's bad. Everybody knows it's not good for anybody whatsoever. But it seems as if people actually mistakenly think that if you attack white supremacy, you attack white people. Sure, some white people may be the beneficiaries of white supremacy, but not every single one of them benefit from it. But, like, if you want to be honest, in some way, shape, or form, they do get a leeway because of it. Then, let's get down to why is it a system. It is a system because it is meant to protect a certain group of people, but it's meant to keep a certain group of people in check. An example, people who look like me, skin tone, all that stuff. People who look like, who are Latino, people who are, if, due to certain actions that happened, Arabic, even though there was still oppression going on between us and them and all that crap, but that's another video for another time. But let me talk about white supremacy and why it's a system. Like I mentioned before, white supremacy requires laws to be passed, laws to be made, and to ensure that certain groups of people are not meant to be in check. For example, if you know about black codes, especially those were codes that were used to keep the enslaved in check, to make sure that they don't do anything out of line. Hell, and there were also literacy tests, historical tests, poll taxes, and all that stuff. But mainly, poll taxes, literary tests, they were meant for like poor whites and blacks. That was it. But let's talk about the law aspect of, white supremacy and how the way white supremacy actually used laws to keep certain groups of people in check. And like I said, an example, me. And I mentioned black codes and how the way certain codes were used to say, hey, look, this was meant for a certain group of people, not you. So get out. Oh yes. And how the way they put like certain signs up and say like, hey, this is for a certain group of people, not you. Go. But and how the way laws were used against us, against people of color. And white supremacy, and I'm just gonna keep it real with you, white supremacy, just like race, gender, and all that crap, is based off of a concept that's not biologically true. It's based off of a lie. Let's just get that out of the way. But the reason why I'm talking about it is because it's very important. See, like I said before, white supremacy is a system. And I know I'm repeating myself because it's very important that turned into a lifestyle. And if you look at certain laws, look at certain decrees, you look at how the way certain things were passed, you would notice that, hey, these were meant to be used to keep certain groups of people in check, inbound, and make sure that they don't speak at all. You remember Plessy versus Ferguson, and how the way a man by the name of Plessy, Homer Plessy or something, I forgot his name, but yeah, he was actually going on to the white section of the train car, so he could travel to whatever location he was trying to go to. But what happened was the fact that because of the one drop rule, if you have, even if you look white, I mean pure white, but if you have one drop of black, you were considered to be black. And they told him to go into the back of the train car, and he refused on the grounds of the fact that he felt like he was incriminated. How's this tying with white supremacy? Because of the fact that he was looked at as a minority instead of as a human being, he was considered to be nothing more than just garbage. So then, and treated unfairly for that matter. Then, the whole court case, which ruled separate but equal constitutional. But that was overridden with Brown versus Board of Ed. And I believe that was 1954. Then there was the Civil Rights Bill in 1964, which stated that constitutionally, that separate but equal is unconstitutional. It's against human rights. It's against unalienable rights that everybody's born with. And then now, how does this tie in, with everything that goes on under the sun? And especially with nowadays and how the way white supremacy can be tied into what's going on now. See, white supremacy, in essence, like I said before, it's a system. And look at how the police department treats some of its certain groups of citizens. Poor whites, blacks, Latinos. Basically those who don't fit the structure of what does it mean to truly be an American. Hey, they even treat some Native Americans like crap. And ironically, they are the indigenous people of America. I mean, who'd have guessed? But, it also goes right down to cops as well. Law enforcers who are supposed to make sure the laws upheld, safe, and the citizens are meant to be safe, from any type of harm whatsoever. But what would happen if the very same laws that were created were also used against the very same people that they were meant to protect? All because they didn't meet one criteria, how they look. And some of you may say that, what are you trying to say, that it still goes on to this day? Just because it's not like overly stated like it was back then, back in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it was still going on. 80s, definitely still going on, but not as much as, it was not as overt, it was more covert. Like the war on drugs and all that stuff, man. That was just a setup. And how the way they also used law enforcement, they also brought soldiers in there, and I remember one line from the movie, and I ain't gonna lie, and this is what they said, and it was an actor by the name of Courtney B. Vance. He played as Bobby Seale in the movie Panther. You know what he said? Well, wait a minute, bro. This ain't Vietnam, but the army's right outside your door, folks. They're the cops. They're the pigs. They're supposed to protect and serve. They do nothing but patrol and control. Now, take that with a grain of salt and think about what I just said about how the way law enforcement was also used in a way of white supremacy. White supremacy is not only about laws, but it's also about a way of life. For example, do any of you know about COINTELPRO, or Counterintelligence Program? See, that was created by the FBI. Yeah, keyword. Yeah, what a surprise. The FBI had something to do with it. And who was in charge at that time? J. Edgar Hoover, which I give a big middle finger to because I don't love him, just like he didn't love my people. I mean, not really anybody inside of office during that time really loved my people. They only did it just so they could look good. But anyways, You know what the original intent of the FBI was? To prevent the rise of another black messiah that would be made to control and not control, but to electrify and awaken the black masses. Not to protect the people, not to make sure that, citizens are safe, but that was their original intent, to prevent the rise of another black messiah. But they can't allow a black messiah unless they control him. An example, Al Sharpton and, Jesse Jackson. They are considered to be FBI agents. You wanna know why? Because truth be told, they are more controlled. If you notice, they're not talking about anything else. That's why supremacy talking. They're not talking about real topics. They're not talking about why are we the way we are. They're not talking about what made us this way. They're not talking about economically building black. They're not talking about doing greater things. You know what they're doing? They're just talking about, oh, we shall overcome. I think that rhetoric is really getting old. But I do love Dr. King, don't get me wrong. He was a brilliant man, great orator, and he did deal with topics too. But I'm going to go with Malcolm X because he was out there, outspoken, and his family were Garveyites. Well, even though he was a part of the Nation of Islam, but you catch my drift. But at the same time, how does all this tie in with white supremacy, the white, social structure? It's because, in the social structure itself, it's not meant to be equal. Key word, white supremacy is not meant to be equal. But then, what is, like I said before, white supremacy, it was never meant, like I said before, it was never meant to be equal towards certain people. It's meant to prove that certain groups of people were meant to be protected, and it's meant to make sure that they were meant to survive more than they were meant to be, kept at bay with some other people. Oh, and let's not forget that they didn't consider women as citizens as well until women started fighting back. See, until people started fighting back, that's when the whole white supremacical structure started saying like, whoa, wait a minute, these were the people that we kept in bound? Man, they're gonna kill us. They're gonna kill what we made for ourselves. And back on the counterintelligence programming, you want to know what counterintelligence programming was originally meant to do? It was meant to neutralize and to keep, the Black Panther Party or any other radically black known, groups and ways neutralized or controlled so they don't ever do anything like that again. Hence why, you got black men getting sold up on trumped up charges that should be comparable to murderers that were actually doing a lot of dirt, especially when it came right down to not only to, there were also murderers, thieves, the KKK, there were the cops, and then now we're talking about all this other crap. But then, how do we white supremacy in itself? What does it mean? White supremacy, to prove that white is superior. And I know that's redundant in itself, but then put it in like this perspective. If white supremacy is meant to prove that it's like a certain group of whites were meant to be superior, an example, middle class whites and wealthy. Why do they need, poor whites? Because, poor whites, believe it or not, were like, how way in the chess game there are pawns and there are, there are like certain ranks. Put it like that. The poor whites represent the pawns. They're meant to fight. They're meant to go out there. They're meant to, just do everything because, the king, queen, and all that crap. Bishops represents, religion. The knights represents, the cops. The rooks, soldiers, if I'm correct. And, king and queen, that's self-explanatory. The government, or, those of a higher status and power. And, us, we do have the same structure too, but we're not as organized. Well,
Not like we used to be very organized, but we're awful in splinter groups. But I'm not going to get into that. But you know, what do pawns do? They're typically those who look at and say, "Okay, we'll do whatever you say. Just keep us alive." But problem is, that's not going to be guaranteed if you're going to be fighting for a corrupt regime. An example, white supremacy. Now, nobody wants to talk about white supremacy because I'm just going to go off on a tangent and just say nobody wants to talk about white supremacy because it's a topic that's very sensitive because it involves racism, and it and racism go hand in hand. White people feel like they're getting attacked because it has the word white in it, and supremacy, and they don't want to be antagonized by what their ancestors have done onto other people, or what their supposedly what their grandparents or their great grandparents have done onto other people to prove a point. And current day whites, some of them, they feel as if like they're getting attacked. No, it's not. It's not the fact that you're getting attacked, and it's not that. Let's get that one thing straight. You're not being attacked. It's not about you, and the fact that you know some of you are just beneficiaries, and it's very funny too because you don't want to listen and deal with the topic at hand. But here's the thing that's being attacked is not you, not the people, but the structure, the system, the oppression. That's what's being attacked. And those who benefit from it, well, I guess they're in the crossfires because they're willing to defend what they are comfortable with. Now, let's talk about, how's all of this tie in with white supremacy, even with that tangent. The reason why all this ties in with white supremacy is because, like I said before, it represents oppression. It doesn't represent, freedom from oppression, liberation. It doesn't represent that. Because if it did represent that, then it would not be called supremacy, meaning to be better than oneself. It would just be an egalitarian way of thinking, meaning that everybody's equal, regardless of gender, regardless of concepts, social concepts, such as race, gender, all that crap. Everybody would just be doing their part that they feel comfortable with, and that is brilliant. But, white supremacy equals oppression because it's not meant to protect certain groups of people, and I'm going to keep on saying that because it is true. What did white supremacy do for us, as Africans here in America, or Africans in the Caribbean, Africans in, back at home in Africa, back in the motherland? Everywhere there's an African presence, there might also be white supremacy right there lurking because of either resources, because of land opportunities, or because of a so-called potential war. Now, I mentioned the war on drugs. And how's that tying with white supremacy? Because the original intention of the war on drugs was actually intended to be used to flush out any type of positive black leadership or black way of life, so that while we're busy killing each other off over what? Over fucking scraps. And they're coming in so they can kill us even further. See, look, here's a gang, they're fighting over drugs. There's the police, they're killing the gangs. And those gangs could represent our manpower. And the fact that we fell for that trick so many times, it shows that we didn't learn our lesson. We didn't learn what our teachers were trying to teach us. Our ancestors, whether they are recent or old, centuries old. And when it comes right down to white supremacy, nobody wants to talk about it because, like I said before, it's a very sensitive topic. Then why not? Why don't we want to talk about it? Why don't we want to talk about white supremacy? Because it's something that's very old and it's very integrated into American culture, whether you like it or not. See, look, you see on TV right there? Yeah, that little that big box that you watch all your entertainment on. Some of it, subliminally hints at white supremacy and or looking at black people as if, or any other race of people as if they fit the stereotype. But yet, you know, all right, let me just put it like this, because white supremacy is not only a structure and a system, but it's also, like I mentioned before, a way of life. And if you have to condition certain people to believe in that way of life, either that or be ostracized and be isolated, by your own peers. That's not good. If you're controlling people to think the same as you, then essentially you're not creating. That's not a person. That's right there. That's just a drone. Now, how does all this, everything talk about white supremacy? And there's also one thing about white supremacy I need to talk about too: colonialization. Sure, there were other colonies that did it too. There were also Arabic colonies. Well, nah, I wouldn't go that far. But how the way there were, I can't put it into words. But how the way colonialization and how the way certain like they have U.S. bases over there in Africa, even though there were also times of peace, and yet colonialization over here in the Americas, and how the way things were going on over there as well. But at the same time, you kind of think and you just say, wait a minute, how does this benefit anybody else if it's only going to benefit you or those who are in the ruling class? How the way it look, it's just not good for people, man. And especially when it comes right down to the fact that, hey, we have something to do as well. We are a people as well. We're not going to stand here and let you tell us what we and we are not. We're not going to let you whitewash our history so you can feel good about yourselves. We're not going to let you erase certain events so you can feel good about yourself. And funny enough, how does this tie in, with cops? How does this tie in with nowadays? Because the reason why white supremacy still exists to this very day is because, let's just put it like this: what was really going on? Nothing really changed, except just the face. Just the face. And now, let me talk about another thing too. And this is about white supremacy with a black face. Because, in slavery times and how the way certain blacks were meant to watch over a certain group of blacks so they don't stare out of line, and how the way they were meant to look at other people and just say like, hey, look, I was fed by the master, I was clothed better. The house Negro and the field Negro effect. See, the house Negro and the field Negro effect still goes on to this very day. And the fact that all of this is going on, and the fact that white supremacy has like all black face on it. I mean, self-hatred towards your own people, black men disrespecting black women, and then you got black men disrespecting each other over what? Because he looked just like you, and you don't like the fact that anything that looks just like you have to kill it. And it's funny too, because nobody wants to talk about, how the way white supremacy is a damaging effect. Because either they don't want to offend their white friends, they don't want to offend their Asian friends, they want to offend, some of these okey doke so-called conscious blacks. Let me tell you something, man. You gotta, when it comes right down to certain topics, you have to speak about it. And I've been holding it in for quite some time, but I have to speak about it too, because truth be told, I think it's a topic that I want to talk about and it's long overdue. And some of you may look at me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. And some of you may say, like, why are you speaking on this topic? And why are you stuttering so much? And what's up with, all this other stuff? Why are you talking about white supremacy out of all things? Why are you talking about race? Why are you talking about Malcolm X? Why are you talking about all this other stuff? Well, I understand this is a tangent, but the reason why I'm talking about this is because these are topics I'm genuinely interested in. And these are topics that I'm just going to utterly just say, hey, look, this is what I'm mainly about. I want to find out what really happened, what is really going on, and why. Why does all of this exist? And if you say that, if you mention it, It's just going to keep on coming back. But problem is this: you can't always run away from a problem and expect to solve it. That's not how things work. If you want to solve a problem, you have to look at it and say, look, we got to deal with you right here and now. And if you don't, then you just risk being controlled. Now, back on to white supremacy. White supremacy, like I said before, is a lifestyle that's destructive. It's a way of life that's destructive. It's not meant to benefit certain groups of people. It never have, never will. And some of you may say, why? Simple. Have you seen the numbers that were killed? Have you ever seen the numbers that were enslaved and killed? Have you ever seen the lives that were uprooted? Have you ever seen the lives that were actually, the earth being polluted and all that crap? Even though that was a result of everybody, I ain't gonna lie. But the minds being crushed, the minds being rebuilt for certain purposes other than for rebuilding nations. That's what white supremacy is. It's a destructive force. And some of you may say, are you trying to use this to, attack white people and all that stuff? And I say, hell no. Because why do I have to attack them? I mean, the TV's already attacking me enough. Major corporations are already attacking my image enough. You got cops out. I got probably potential cops looking at me and saying hey, let's get him. And you already got brainwashed blacks who thinking, yeah, let's get him because he was just like me or he's just different. No. You want to know what I'm afraid of? And I'm going to be straight up honest with you. When I look at my own people and I say, we used to be something so beautiful. Some of us got the message, and some of us said, you know what, man, we got to change this shit up right now. But the reason why I'm worried, I am scared, and I am saddened by the fact that my own people are, are under this umbrella effect, this effect from white supremacy, this effect that we're killing each other over nothing. Now, why? It's seriously a scary effect because some of us don't want to talk about it. Some of us think it's racist to talk about it. Some of us may say why should we talk about a topic that's already been done to death? It seems as if you want to know what the reason why I'm talking about this topic that's already been done to death is because nobody's learned the lesson from it, and that's sad. And I'm just going to talk about this topic because it's a topic that needs to be addressed. See, I love my people. I love, I love everybody. I ain't gonna lie to you. I love whites, love Asians, love blacks, love different cultures. Because you know why? I'm a person as well. Everybody represents, everybody represents a certain part of the world. But, like I said, if you think because you are superior because of how the way you look or your way of looking at things, then essentially, you know what happens? You don't learn anything except about what is indoctrination instead of liberation. And with indoctrination, you only learn what you have been told what to do. You only learn what other people tell you what to do. Just like white knights. They believe what the hell they want to hear. But at the same time, what else is next? This is Roman Class saying, I 1 at 1. Love y'all. Respect y'all. Hope you have a great day today. Later.